six-pack. I think that's what he promised. I'm pretty sure it was. So, I've got some letters we got from my show yesterday, which I want to get to as well. Please, please, please feel free to call in. I am happy to take calls anytime you like, and we're going to have a great, great show. So let's start with a story you may remember from, if you ever took a class in philosophy, you probably saw the professor through one bloodshot eye at 8 o'clock in the morning. You may remember this story because I think we're going to play a clip in a little bit from Matt Cartwright, the Democrat representative from Pennsylvania, about Obamacare. But I want you to think about that clip we're going to play in a sec and compare it to this story. This is the story of Socrates at the Oracle at Delphi. And it really is the foundation of the greatness of Western culture. I think this one story is the tip of the spear that broke the superstitions of the ancient world. So Socrates was known as a wise and curious and phenomenally ugly man. The busts of him looked like the elephant man made in wax, melted under a hot sun after having been kicked by an ass. But you know, inner beauty is what counts, right? That's why I'm on the radio and not television. But anyway, there was a guy named Xenophon, and he visited the Oracle at Delphi. So the Oracle at Delphi was basically a guy who had a direct pipeline to the gods. And he could never lie, because the gods couldn't lie. So every time you asked the Oracle at Delphi something, he had to tell you the truth. There was just no way around it. So this guy goes to the Oracle at Delphi and he says, man, there's this guy named Socrates. Everybody thinks he's a smart guy. I think he's a bit of a smart ass, but they say he's a smart guy. Is there anyone in Athens who is wiser than Socrates? And the Oracle at Delphi said, no, not really. I'm sure that it just like that. No, not really. In a big booming voice. Oh, I should have added some echo there. We'll do that in post-production, right? But the Oracle said, no, there's no one wiser than Socrates. And Xenophon went to go and told Socrates that. And Socrates said, well, that can't be right. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever, because I am intensely aware of my own ignorance. I mean, and any wise person is intensely aware of their own ignorance. There are so many things. Look, I've done thousands of podcasts. I've interviewed probably 500 subject matter experts. I still feel fairly retarded in about 99.999% of human knowledge. I mean, human knowledge doubles every 18 months or every 12 months or some insane thing like that. There's just no way to keep up. So we have to be intensely aware of our own ignorance. Because one of the things that is a mark of low intelligence is a high estimation of your own knowledge. This is very, very, this has been repeatedly tested and found to be true, that the dumber you are, the smarter you think you are, and the smarter you are, the more you realize how little you know. Which is why we aim for principles, not facts, as philosophers, right? Like physicists, they don't aim for this rock falls, they aim for how do all rocks fall, how does everything fall, how does matter interact. If you aim for just things themselves, then you're like a dog who can catch a ball. Doesn't mean that you understand the equations behind it or can figure out how to launch a probe to go past Jupiter. Just means you can catch a ball and get astonishing amounts of drool on it. So Socrates said, I cannot possibly be the wisest because I know enormously little. I'm intensely aware of my own ignorance. So Socrates made it his life's work. He said, okay, I'm faced with a contradiction here. The oracle cannot lie. The oracle cannot lie. Yet the oracle has told Xenophon that I am the wisest in Athens. So how am I going to resolve this contradiction? He had what he called a daemon, a conscience that sort of sat on his shoulder and bothered him when he did something wrong. And it was bothering him. Oracle can't lie, but I can't be the wisest. Let's resolve this. So he decided to go and question the most learned, the wisest, the greatest teachers in Athens. All the people who said, boy, we got knowledge tied up in a bow, and we can insert it anywhere you like so that you can be knowledgeable and walk like John Wayne. And he wouldn't go and ask them, and they'd say, I know what is justice, I know what is piety, I know what is virtue, I know what is wisdom, I know truth, goodness, spin the wheel, I know it. And he would ask them, and he would keep asking them, and he would find out very quickly that they did not know what they claimed to know. One man said, the life of pleasure is the best life. The life of physical, sensual pleasure, sex, food, back rubs, guys or girls, whatever. Actually, probably that may not be geographically correct. I'll have to look that up. See, I told you I didn't know much. And he said the life of pleasure is the best. And Socrates said, well, you know one thing that's intensely pleasurable to me? It's not what you think. When I have an itch, and I can't quite get there, and then I finally get my fingertip on it and give it a good old scratch, it's like, oh, that's so good. And he said, if the life of pleasure is the best, then having a perpetual itch that you're perpetually scratching must be the very best possible life. Well, that really doesn't make much sense now, does it? He kept asking people who claimed to have all of this knowledge, and he found out, well, two things happened. One, he made an enormous number of enemies, as rational questioning tends to do in the world, because there's so many people who profit from lies, misdirections, falsehood, manipulations, and control. Propaganda, basically. So he found that people hated him for asking the questions, and he also found that they didn't know what they claimed to know. And then, oh man, then he got it. Like an epiphany, literally like the Sermon on the Mount, like a lightning bolt straight to the base of the brain. He got it. And he said, now I understand what the oracle meant. I am the wisest man in Athens because I know that I know almost nothing. Whereas other people think that they know something when they in fact don't know something. I am wise because I accept the enormity of my ignorance, and these other people are foolish because they pretend to have knowledge that they don't have. Now think of that in terms of us and the government. Barack Obama says, I can reduce your healthcare premiums $2,500 a year by the end of my first term. How does he know he can do that? How does he know? Are they overcharging people $2,500? He doesn't know. Guy doesn't know much about economics at all, wasn't trained in it at all. Can he figure out, well, you know, while being leader of the free world, I think I will also find a cure for cancer. And that's got to lower premiums. For sure. And, you know, while I'm at it, I'll knock some decroper in the lab and also discover a cure for Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis and all these kinds of things. That's going to reduce premiums. He doesn't know. He just promises things that he doesn't know. This is foundational. This is foundational to understanding why the world is not working. We forget what Socrates taught us 2,500 years ago, which is that we do not know so much, and the government and the politicians will always claim to give you answers. We're going to cure poverty, we're going to cure ignorance, we're going to heal the sick, we're going to make the oceans cool and reverse global warming. I mean, they could do that just by turning off their teleprompters and trying to talk without having the speechwriter's hands up their butt. We're going to talk about the Socratic method. We're going to talk about the wisdom of philosophy, how it can help our dying society, how it can help our society committing a slow, economic harikari through debt and imprisonment and enslavement. We have so much to learn that we have forgotten, which is why we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy today. We're, of course, going to welcome your calls about philosophical topics, about virtue, goodness, truth, ethics. All the tasty, juicy stuff that can make our lives better. If we are rational, we can be virtuous. Until we are rational, we cannot be virtuous. If we are virtuous, we can aim for the greatest good, which is happiness. As Aristotle pointed out, happiness is the one thing we don't get in order to get something else. So, stay with us. Don't worry. Be happy. So, we'll be right back after the break. We're going to talk a little bit about what the politicians are saying, how it compares to Socrates' wisdom, and then we'll be talking to Dr. Peter Boghossian about philosophy in action. This is Stefan Molyneux for Peter Boghossian.
Hey, girl. I ain't gonna try no trick of the moves, girl.
We are talking about philosophy, and we're talking about Socrates and the wisdom of knowing how little you know. I mean, you ever sit down and speak with an expert and they just blow your mind? This happens to me like literally every other day. I sit down with somebody and it blows my mind how much they know and how ridiculously ignorant I am. We like the specialization of the modern free market and all that kind of stuff, but man, it makes you feel retarded sometimes. So, we've said that Socrates was considered the wisest because he knew that he didn't know a whole bunch of stuff about the world. And his refusal to participate in what Thomas Sowell calls the wisdom of the anointed. You know, like, I anoint myself as the savior of humanity, and I am going to educate the children and make the illiterate literate and heal the sick and part the oceans and walk on water. I mean, this madness, this megalomania, this truly economically suicidal grandiosity that is the very nature of the powers that be. Let's have a listen to Matt Cartwright. Audio Wizards, this is Cut 01. Matt Cartwright talking about how it's great that you lose your health care under Obamacare.
In large part in semantics there, Thomas, because a lot of those people, they did have policies that didn't meet the minimum standards. That's just not a theoretical discussion. There's a reason you have minimum standards. There are people out there who have insurance that's really, it's an illusion of coverage. I mean, they have immense deductibles. They have annual and lifetime caps. There's so many people out there with what I call phony insurance policies, and the fact that they're going to lose those policies sooner or later, I think is a good thing, because what we're up to here is we are strengthening the healthcare system in this country.
Isn't that delightful? Isn't that just a tasty cheesecake of vanity stuffed straight up your nose? You see, you may like your insurance, you may like your doctor, but the problem, you see, is that Matt Cartwright doesn't like it. And remember, he's got the guns. What is it that happens when the government does stuff? Frankly, they point guns at people. All the government has is a gun. Most of what law is an opinion with a gun. Do they reason with you? Do they sit you down and say, you know what, we've got some better healthcare options for you. Let us win you over through reason, through peace, through negotiation. No! They point guns at you, basically, and say, do it or die. Pay your fines or die. Sign up or die. And I say or die, not lightly and not sophistically, but in reality, you don't obey the law. Soon you get letters, you get complaints, you get guys coming to your door. You don't go with them, you could be shot. No one to call the cops on when the cops are at your door. So he doesn't think that you have the right healthcare, and he's not going to reason with you. He's not going to make the case. He's certainly not going to found a healthcare company and provide you better options. No, no, no. Why would you want to do any of that when you have a gun? Guy comes up to you in a dark alley, he's not going to try and talk you out of your wallet if he's perfectly willing to stab you in the side if you don't give it to him. He doesn't need a lot of eloquence when he's well armed. And the fact that this guy doesn't like your health care should be entirely irrelevant. In a free society, Matt Cartwright's opinion about your health care coverage would be completely irrelevant. Don't like my health care? Don't like my car? Good thing you didn't get my health care. Good thing you didn't buy my car. Good thing you don't have to have sex with my wife. If you don't find her attractive, I think she's hot. But it's not satisfying to him. Now, first of all, this is complete nonsense. This is complete. First of all, a lot of people who are getting the Obamacare are getting higher deductibles, massively higher, double, triple deductibles. So this is all nonsense. Why does somebody who's 60 want dental insurance for their children? You know, if you haven't dealt with your kids' dental problems by the time they're 40, I kind of think they're on their own. Why do young people want insurance against afflictions almost entirely associated with age? Why can you not choose? Well, you can't choose because this has nothing to do with feeling that there are no minimum standards. We all know how this works politically, right? It's all very clear. A bunch of people want other people to pay for their health care, and so they lobby the government to put minimum standards in so that everybody else has to subsidize their health care. Single moms don't have a dad to pay. for the kids' dental work. So they got to make everyone pay. 90% of the rise in the welfare state is directly attributable to single moms. You kill the family, you feed the state.